My wife, 28, and I, 30, had a baby who is now 3 months old. When we were trying to conceive, her dad, 83, had 2 massive strokes that have now left him bedridden, with very limited use of his legs and his arms. Due to all that, plus his age, we are fairly certain this will be the last grandchild he will know. The rest of her siblings have no interest in having kids anytime soon. When we found out we were having a boy, we decided to name him after her dad, Jackson, with 2 middle names after my own dad, James and Robert. When we told my parents the name, my dad showed his dislike for it and suggested his own name. We explained that we were naming him after my wife's dad, but that his middle names would be after him. He seemed annoyed but didn't bring it up again. When our son was born, everyone called him Jackson, except my dad, who refers to him as JR, his own initials. My wife didn't say anything at first, and I didn't think too much of it. Now that our baby has gotten a bit bigger, she has actually expressed her annoyance in it to me and said we should say something to my dad, as my wife finds it disrespectful. I admit I was taken back, as I don't think that it's big of a deal as it is his grandson as well, and he should be able to call him what he wants. My wife got a little upset and said that our son's name means something to her and that she will express so to my dad herself. I told her not to cause drama over something so small, and to move on from the fact that my dad will refer to our son as Junior. She is now hurt that I am brushing off something important to her, but I honestly don't think it is worth what the outcome will probably be. Update. I feel like more of an idiot than anything, and my dad is being an idiot in this situation. My wife did in fact bring it up to my dad, much to my annoyance at first. She just politely asked him why he never calls him Jackson, and he laughed and actually said, "Why would I even flirt with that idea when Junior is so much better?" I thought wifey was going to go Laura Dern and BLL. Yes, I am a man. Yes, I watched that show. And yes, I think those women are national treasures. Moving on now. My wife then reminded him that he should flirt with the idea because Jackson is indeed his name, and she would disagree with Junior being better, which is evident due to the fact that's what she and I both decided on. This is the exact situation I was referring to that would happen. Dad says he's grandpa, it's his first grandson, and will continue to call him JR, and then brought me into it, asking if I mind. At this point, I was angry at my dad for openly admitting he had no intentions of calling our son by his name, and then telling my wife he could care less how she felt about it, which I'm also an idiot for. I accept my fate, thank you all, and told my dad to refer to him as Jackson. No sleeping on the couch for this guy. My wife then more or less told him that if our son chooses to go by a nickname, then that would be fine, but because he's a baby and can't decide for himself, he came out of her juju, so she speaks for him right now, and I am not going to disagree with that. Honestly, bad jokes aside, I feel like an idiot for brushing it off. My Phil is an amazing, strong man and father, and I am very proud to have our son named after him, and I let the thought of what I perceived as a petty conflict overlook what my wife was feeling, and I am an idiot for that. Thank you everyone for taking the time to respond. My dad is very angry right now, and I guess I will see how that plays out and where we all go from here. You are the idiot, but especially your father, mostly because he made his displeasure about the name known and suggested his own from the start. This makes it obvious that giving your son this nickname is your dad's way of rebelling against the name and is therefore disrespectful. Talk to your father about this, especially as it's upsetting to your wife. Sorry man, you are the idiot. Your wife doesn't want him calling her son that, so it's only polite to not call him that. He may be his grandson, but he's her son first. She named her son Jackson, that's what's on his birth certificate. It means something to her, so it's not fair of you to brush it off. Please talk to your dad about this. You are the idiot. Your son has a meaningful name, but all your father cares about is that it isn't his name. Also, you aren't supporting your wife in something that she finds important because you don't want the hassle of going against your father. You are way past the age of needing daddy's approval. You need to stand up and make this decision for your wife and son. My son cheated on his wife with another woman and got the other woman pregnant. After a lot of counseling and soul searching, my son and his wife decided to remain married. They have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, who are obviously my grandchildren. I am very close with them and have spoiled them since they were born. I have no relationship with the child my son had with the other woman. I believe he is almost 2 now. I think it would pain my daughter-in-law, who is like my own daughter. I have known her since she was in her young teens, if I had a real relationship with this child. She never talks about him at all. As for my son, I know he pays child support. I believe he sees the child only occasionally though. Maybe once every few months, I'm not sure. Anyhow, the child's mother reached out to me. Apparently, she got my number from my son. She told me who it was and basically asked if I wanted to have a relationship with my grandson. I said I wasn't sure it was a good idea and she hung up the phone. I obviously told my son about this phone call. He said he gave the woman my number but he didn't know what she was going to say. When I explained what she wanted, he had no reaction. So I dropped the subject. Not the idiot. You're trying very hard to navigate a difficult situation. Maybe take Dill out to dinner and have a heart-to-heart with her and see how she feels about the situation. It's not the child's fault his father made a horrible choice. He should be able to know his family and be welcomed. It will really hurt him that he has a whole other family that is ashamed of him when he grows up. No idiots here. Obviously except your son for his behavior. I think it's definitely rather unfair for the child and I don't blame the mother for reaching out and being upset you didn't seem interested, but ultimately I can see your point as well. You have a relationship with your Dill that this could really hurt and could affect your ability to see your other grandchildren, and while they may have worked past the cheating, inviting the child could definitely affect their family dynamic they are working through. If you want to see the child, I'd talk to your son and Dill about how they feel about it. You are the idiot. That little boy is blameless and instead of blaming your own son, you all take it out on the boy. This kid is not less your grandson and not less his father's boy than the other kids. He deserves to get the same treatment the other kids get. I bet it's horrible to grow up knowing that your father and grandparents adore your siblings but ignore you completely. It's time for all of you to face the consequences of your son's actions and embrace them. Even your Dill has to face the fact that she chose to stay with your son, for the sake of that little boy. So my life has been turned completely upside down over the last few weeks. For the record, I am 21 and my brother, 28, just passed away. Up until a few years ago, my brother was living at home with me. He put all of his savings speculating on cryptocurrency when Bitcoin was around $300 and ended up selling out just before the peak. He owned lots of Bitcoin along with other coins he told me about. I don't know how much he made originally, but it was probably in the 5-10M range. Anyway, shortly after cashing out, my brother moved out and we heard less and less of him. A few weeks ago we found out he had passed away after using. Obviously, this was a massive shock as the brother I knew never used anything other than smoking. To cut a long story short, surprisingly he had a will despite his age and left almost everything to me. This includes a house worth $800K and almost $4M in cash, stock. The dispute is between me and his ex-wife. He has 2 kids with his ex-wife and didn't leave her anything. He put $500K into a trust to be paid to his kids, split 50-50, when they turned 30, but that's it. He never saw his kids because his ex-wife wouldn't let him, so I guess that's why he left most of everything to me? Anyway, kind of rambling here, the point is that I don't plan on sharing any of this with his ex-wife. In my opinion, the $500K he left his kids in a trust is more than enough to give them a very comfortable life. He left me the rest of his money and I intend to spend all of it on myself and my future kids. Parents think I should at least give the house to his ex-wife so that my niece and nephew have a stable home life. Ex-wife obviously wants as much as I'm willing to give. He didn't leave our youngest brother, 16, anything, but I intend to pay for all of his college, etc. so that he at least receives something. Not the idiot. He left this to you for a reason. He obviously thought it out enough that his ex-wife hasn't been left anything and the kids are taken care of with his assets. He has done it for whatever reason, but now a lot comes down to you with what you do with your younger brother, etc. But don't let your parents blame you into something you don't think he would do. Out of everyone it been left to you, whether it's for good judgment or other reasons. You are the idiot for keeping almost all of it for yourself. It wouldn't hurt you financially to at least pay for his kids' higher education, even if you don't want to give the ex-wife anything. Understandable there. Maybe it's a cultural difference, but I'm surprised that you're not sharing any of the money with your brother or parents. Paying for your brother's education is barely anything when you just inherited $5 million. Why would your older brother leave your younger brother nothing? Something's weird here. You are the idiot. You're hypothetical Kids should not take priority over your brother's existing kids, regardless of how you feel about the ex. Consider another trust to pay for their ongoing maintenance, and maybe even put the house in it, with you as trustee. That way the house will eventually belong to your brother's children, as it should, and they have money for medical expenses, education, etc., either as you deem appropriate, or preferably, to keep conflict with the ex minimal, a monthly stipend, like child support. I have a very small dog. She's a rescued teacup chihuahua who, along with some birth defects due to her unfortunate family tree, is also very fearful of children, as a lot of tiny dogs tend to be. Because of this, she can come off as aggressive when kids get too close. It's not usually a problem, and parents usually understand when I explain why their kid can't play with my dog. My dog is okay with other dogs, of all sizes. She grew up with Labradors, so she knows how to handle herself. Regardless, when she's at the dog park, I never take my eyes off her. The dog park we go to is great for her because it's big enough to where she can run around with bigger dogs but still has enough room to keep her distance and move away if she needs to. There's also a fenced-off small dog area, but we rarely use it as there's usually no one in there. We've been going to this dog park for years, with no issues. Recently a lady came in with her 2 daughters, about 5 and maybe 3. I didn't mind her at first. She said she was new to the neighborhood and her girls just wanted to meet the dogs. When they approached mine, I explained to the kids that they couldn't play with my dog. The problem is it's been about a month now, and almost every single time I've been there, she's there too. I have to explain to her kids every time that they can't touch my dog, sometimes multiple times. Eventually, I talked to the mom about it. She gave me a weird look and said, "Look, they're all fine playing together. It's good for your dog to learn to be around kids anyway." I briefly explained to her that that's not how that works, but rather than make it an issue, I took my dog home. The last straw was the last time I was at the dog park. The older girl hopped the fence and fell right on top of another smaller dog, which to their credit they did apologize to the owner for. Not 5 minutes later I see the 2 girls corner and taunt my dog, who's growling and barking at them, clearly terrified. The mom sees this too, and rushes over telling me to calm my dog down, and that if my dog is aggressive I should keep it in the fenced area, even though that area is for small dogs, not aggressive ones. Who would even bring an aggressive dog to a dog park? I snapped. Does she have a brain damage? Some sort of short-term memory loss? I had already told her and her kids to leave my dog alone. So I let her know all of this and ended it by reminding her that the dog park isn't a petting zoo, it's specifically so that dogs can play freely. If the kids are preventing even one dog from doing so, they shouldn't be there. There are plenty of other, probably safer places for her to take her kids. Again, I took my dog and left, but not before she called me a fool, in front of her kids. Not the idiot. This lady has zero common sense and it's only a matter of time before one of her kids gets bit. Frankly, if it was me, the next time it happened I would tell her if she and her kids don't leave I will be calling the non-emergency police line. That may make me an idiot, but clearly, she is not taking her children's safety seriously nor the dogs, and she and her children are being a nuisance. Also, small dogs bite more often than large dogs. Not the idiot. While I do enjoy the dog park just as much as my dog because I get to pet dogs, that's not a given for every dog. First and foremost, that park is there for the dogs to enjoy. Also, just in general, this lady needs to learn some boundaries. Being told no once should be enough, maybe twice for a small kid who might forget. But constantly? And then having the audacity to assume she knows what is best for your dog? Unless she's a professional dog trainer, she has no business correcting you there. Not the idiot. If your dog bites her kids, she'll probably call the cops and get the pup quarantined or put down. Does your dog park have an attendant? I know it's rare. You can complain. You can also call the police the next time she shows up. Otherwise, in my opinion, it's time to find a new park. Her irresponsibility is a risk to your dog. This is a really weird situation. Me and my girlfriend live together. We are 23 and 25. My sister often has to go on business trips. 4 to 5 months ago, my nephew came to stay with us. He is 8 years old, and generally a really weird kid. I figure some kind of disorder of some sort. Anyways, there were a few instances where he, well, Would go out of his way to see us naked. We don't have a lock for our bedroom bathroom. We got one installed after this, and it's almost like he would wait until we were in there, then go into the room and peek in to see what we were doing. We caught him doing this like 10 times. We told him, over and over, please do not do that, but there isn't exactly much we could do. I don't even know how he always knew we were in there, but it was super uncomfortable. We eventually resorted to having to put a 30 pounds weight against the door whenever we would use the bathroom. But then he resorted to just pushing the door open with all his weight, not even peeking, frightening us. There was one point where he walked in on us having love at 3 a.m. Why the hell was this kid awake? And just was staring at us from the doorway. Who knows how long he was starting. He would also randomly get naked and run around the apartment. It was like the week from hell, well, only 6 days, but whatever. He would also randomly grab my girlfriend's breasts out of nowhere. We told my sister about this and she said it was incredibly weird because he's mostly well behaved at their house and doesn't do stuff like that. And frankly, it is weird. We've been on vacations with him and he never did anything like this to anyone. We went to Barcelona for 2 weeks with my sister and him and nothing weird happened. My sister called me in a hurry, saying she has to go to Madrid for work for another 5 days, and that her babysitter crapped out on her. She has nobody else to take her kid, and she asked if we could take him. She said she has nobody else to take him. I talked to my girlfriend and she practically laughed at the idea of it. It was a resounding no from her. I honestly felt terrible about this because my sister doesn't exactly know many people here to ask beside us. She only moved here a year ago. But I told her no, I just couldn't deal with this kid making us this uncomfortable anymore. My sister sounded like she wanted to cry because she was so upset, but this was just too weird for us. It doesn't help that my girlfriend would be alone for 2 days with him while I'm getting my surgery, in which I would be in the hospital overnight. No idiots here. Your sister needs to have a backup sitter for this type of situation, especially since she has to travel so much for work. I do feel that you should have told her after that week you no longer felt comfortable with him spending the night so that this could have been avoided or not surprising when you turned her down. He, for whatever reason, was a little too curious, and your girlfriend is within her right to not want to watch him, especially if she will have to keep him alone for 2 days. Not the idiot, but the situation with your nephew is extremely concerning. Usually, children that young who are exhibiting those behaviors have been or are being abused. I would contact Child Protective Services or a social worker. Approaching the sister may not be beneficial as, hopefully not, she could be the one abusing him or being incestuous on some level with him. Not the idiot. Tell your sister the truth about your nephew's behavior without editorializing. Say something like, my girlfriend and I don't want to babysit because your son was inappropriate multiple times during his last visit. It is then up to his mother to investigate. While his behavior could be due to abuse, it could also be that the kid is very curious and thought he could get away with looking, touching because he thinks you are cool and you don't have all rules his mom has. If it is the latter case, he'll outgrow this phase.